Okay, Steve Young calling from the 404? No, 210.
No, 210.
210. Tell us what the 210 is.
San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio, Texas. Oh, the San Antonio Spurs beat my Knicks in '94. I'll never get over it.
Hey, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just wanted to echo what you all were saying about the startup visa. I am an immigrant here, and I hope entrepreneurs do, and hope to create jobs, eventually. And I know lots of other immigrant entrepreneurs who would love to do the same thing too. So I think the startup visa movement is great.
I, for one, welcome you to our country and hope you create many jobs here. You have a question for us. Let's hear it.
I do have a question. Do you have any guidance for setting the salaries of founding partners when trying to raise angel or VC money?
Okay, this is a great question. So your question, just to be very clear about it, is do we have any advice on what the founder's salary should be at an angel investing or Series A round? This is a great question. Howard, how do you approach it?
Well, at the angel round in particular, we look at what you can accomplish with the amount of money you're going to raise. And if we prefer to see salaries that are relatively low for the founders at that stage, which is to say between 50 and 100,000, depending on the city and what it costs to live rationally. We don't want you begging for food or anything.
Right.
You should take that into account. But you want to stretch the money. We often see founders take relatively low salaries. Once we get a Series A round, a few $1 million in the company, then we think you should go to below market because you've got a lot of equity, but still reasonable salaries. In that case, maybe 125. We don't ever want to see salaries starting with twos in this. And then it depends sort of on experience, age, a lot of other factors play in there.
Sure. I'm going to have to go with that. I think as you get older as an entrepreneur and you raise more amounts of money, you have more capital needs, like say families and stuff like that. There's actually a double standard. People will look at it and say, you know what, to get this CEO, they've got a mortgage, 3 kids in private school, we're going to have to pay them $250,000 a year or $300,000 a year or $200,000 a year. And the VCs will say, you know what, we're going to bite the bullet on that. It's going to be the exception in our portfolio. Most of the portfolio makes $100,000 for a CEO. But we really want this guy or gal. I mean, you've had this situation.
That's when you're bringing someone in. If they're a founder, it's a little different. So if they're founding it, they know what they're signing up for. If we have to bring in a great CEO, absolutely, we've had that situation. We try, and we often, or almost always actually, offer them the following kind of choice. You can have 175 and X percent. You can have 200 and X minus 1%. You can, and so on. So you make the choice as to how much cash versus equity you want, and we give you a range.
And it's a little bit of a tell.
Of course.
And if somebody picks the high end of the range, does that make you less interested in them, or is it a red flag?
It's a little bit of a flag. That,
flag.
A mini flag. How much do they really value the equity? If they're not really valuing the equity, then what are they trying to build? Because we're valuing only the equity.
Exactly. That's because you're investors in it. Stephen, good answer?
Yeah. So that makes sense. I do have another question. If so let's say you have your Series A or B. When your founding partners or maybe executives in the company want an increase in salary, do they typically approach your board for approval?
Okay, so this second question is, do you approach your board before raising your salary? And the answer to that is yes.
Absolutely yes.
Yes. It would look really bad if you were to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm doubling my salary. In fact, what I would do is, when you're raising money, is the perfect time to negotiate or sort of reset your compensation and say, contingent upon closing this round, I would like to move, the salary of these 3 people to this amount in recognition that we got to this point and the company's become this, much more valuable. You never would want to do it on the slide because it's going to come out anyway, and then you look like you're being sneaky.
It's also in our documents that the board or a compensation committee of the board sets salaries of the officers.
Right.
So you really can't do it.
Top 3 positions.
By yourself.
Generally get picked by the board. So. And I've seen, just to give you some other stories, I've seen founders who have, not taken a salary for the first year, but had that been a loan to the company, and then contingent upon closing the first round, they get paid back that loan, or it gets converted into stock at that price.
More likely that. More
likely that, or maybe half and half. All kinds of different arrangements like that. So I do know people who have taken, for example, I knew somebody who took like their basic living expenses, which were $5,000 or $6,000 a month, so they're taking a $75,000 salary, but they felt they deserved another 75, so they sort of took that in deferred compensation. And you've done this kind of stuff before,
yes.
And it's contingent on a closing a round or something.
Yep. And
you guys are more than happy to do that. How do you feel about people in a later round, like we've seen a lot, supposedly with Dig and WordPress and some other companies? It's been reported that the founders maybe took $2, $3, $4, $5 million off the table in order to keep them motivated past years 4, 5, and 6, or into years
right.
4, 5, and 6 of the journey.
It's a good question. It's one that we've changed our opinions on over the last couple of years, because and we do believe it's okay in a later round for the founders to take some money off the table, not too much, and not how much does that mean? 1 or 2 million. Probably, unless if they're buying a house. I mean, they usually have a specific need.
A loft.
For a loft. I mean, you remember the stories, or I do because I'm old enough, of Steve Wozniak talking about how much his house cost, because he sold Apple stock early to buy a house, and he said it was his $200 million house.
Yeah.
If he had held the stock for the
right.
next couple
So even
of
for their own good.
Even for their own good, they
right.
may be hurting themselves. But it is good because there's a limit to how much you want somebody to feel deprived and be put upon by their spouse. I mean, because what's going to happen is
you've
been doing this, you lose the spouse support.
Game
and that's
over.
really big because we want this person to be working as much as possible on this company.
Right.
And that means you need buy-in from the spouse. And if the spouse says, and I can't buy a new dress, or we can't take this vacation, or we can't do anything, and
or
you've been doing this for 4 years,
go to school,
and you've been doing this for 4 years,
and
or
you
5
have another
years,
job offer, and headhunters calling you for triple your salary. Why should I suffer?
So we're comfortable with taking some appropriate money off the table, and that's become the norm in the last 2 or 3 years. Also because exits have taken so much longer.
It is taking forever now. I mean, it's basically you start a company, you're in for 6, 7 years.
Well, it's
the idea of the 2, 3 year flip. It seems like it's gone away.
It's gone away. It's gone back.
I mean, I did it, but
it's gone back to the weblogs, but it's gone back to the 80s.
Right.
Where you started a company, and if you did well, it made money in year 5 and 6, and went public in year 7.
Yeah.
But not much before that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Stephanie, you coming to the South by Southwest party next Saturday?
Do you have to have tickets for South by Southwest to come in?
No, the party for This Week in Startups is open to anybody. And so...
then I'll be there.
Yeah, do me a favor, email, we'll make sure we get you on the list. Okay,
all right.
Great job, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Cheers.